Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. As always, super excited to have you here. And, you know, I say it every week, but the guests just keep getting better. Ours today is going to light it up. I'm super pumped to have them. And before we bring them in to the show, I want to remind everybody the new and improved manupalready.com is live. On there, you will find the video format of the Man Up Already Growth Conference that we held in June. We've got all the speakers, their notes. It's a phenomenal event. And it's up there for purchase. I highly, I say it, all the time. If you're a guy, right, get that event. And if you're a woman, kick him in the ass and get him to get the event. If anything, watch it together. But there is a lot of nuggets in there that I think will greatly help. So there's, there's more and more coming. Get on the Man Up Already email list. You can do that online. We're sending out a bunch of content, and I'm just going to share this as well because I sent this out to our audience, and I want to mention it here on the podcast. While it is in theaters, I highly recommend that you go see Sound of Freedom. Our family went this past weekend. That is an issue that needs awareness like crazy. And here on the podcast, if you go back to 2019, there is an episode called Removing the Scourge Among Us, which deals with trafficking and the experience that our family has had in that arena. And if you've been following the show for a while, you know that is something we absolutely stand against. You can also find the episode with Jeremy Mayhew, where we talk about that there as well. So Sound of Freedom out there in the theaters and support that movement. That is an ask that we have here on the show. All right. So without further ado, let's bring in our incredible guests. Guys, today we have a power couple, James and Bersabeh Ray. Super pumped to have them. Best-selling authors, mentors, coaches, leaders. I'm not going to, spend all the time, listing their accolades. I want them to tell their story and the things that they've done. I always like to make sure that you hear it from those that have done it, because I think there's power in that and hearing people's stories. So I'm super excited to have James and Bersabeh Ray here on the Man Up Already podcast, and let's welcome them in.
Hello.
Hey, John.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited.
So are we. It's great to be here. And you had to mention Sound of Freedom, didn't you? Wow.
Yeah.
That hits us in the heart.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
We haven't.
We paid it forward.
We paid it forward, and
we're waiting to see it at home because I don't think I can handle sitting in the theater with. Yeah, I can only imagine.
We've seen the interview that Peterson did with Jim and with Tim.
Yeah.
And so we've seen a lot around it, and we're very sensitive to the topic. So anyway, I won't go down that road unless you want to go down that road.
Well, I would just say that it was well done, right? It really was, where you were emotionally brought into what's going on, but it wasn't a Schindler, to use it as a comparison, where if Schindler showed everything, this did not go there from a graphic standpoint, where it really did hit emotionally what's going on with that.
Yeah. And we're probably all grateful that it didn't go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be really tough to stomach.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, we, as a family, same thing, right? We paid it forward. We had paid to go, and then we paid it forward as well. A little bit of history just to not go crazy. But in 2019, our daughter is an actress, and she was in a theater major, and she was in a play where she was trafficked. And so I didn't know what I was going to see. And I'm sitting there in the front row, and I watched it happen 6 feet from me. And it was so well done that I was emotionally compromised in that moment. And and then that's when all the Epstein stuff came out, which was 10 minutes from my house. So it's a very real thing.
Well, and it's unfortunate too, and I don't know what road we want to go down, but it's really bizarre to me at some level, and then maybe not, that the mainstream media has totally not touched it, and Hollywood hasn't either.
They're debunking it too.
They're debunking it and calling it, conspiracy theory, and Hollywood has been completely silent. All these supposed do-gooders, I mean, it's very enlightening. We live in very enlightening times. They're turbulent, and yet a lot of people are waking up and going, wait a minute, what's going on here? Maybe I need to not be asleep at the wheel anymore.
Right. It is a time like that for sure. And there are, people like you that are out there telling your story, working with others, and bringing that enlightenment. So I think it's a good segue to just finding out about who James and Bear are, and what you're up to and what you're after.
Well, to go from there, we actually what we all encompassing like to do is create independent thinkers. And I'll let James brush up on that.
Wait a minute.
Do you realize what you
did?
I opened a can of
buddy.
No, you said I need to brush up on being an independent thinker is what you just said. I'm not sure that's what you intended to
That's
convey.
not what I meant.
Yeah, I hope not. I think you meant I'll let James expand on that.
Okay,
good.
English is not my first language.
That's her second language.
I'm okay.
She's got
I get by.
She's got a heck of a story of her childhood and escaping from Iran, from a war-torn country, which maybe we'll tell, or she'll tell another time. But nonetheless, society doesn't like independent thinkers.
No.
And that's pretty obvious. I mean, if you look at the school system, which is owned and created and built by the Rockefellers, that's a fact. Well, Rockefeller said decades ago, we don't want to create thinkers, we want to create good workers.
Right.
And that about says it all. And so people who are independent thinkers don't assimilate really well. They don't comply. And it doesn't mean that you have to be rebellious and you have to be the one out, throwing stones. God forbid, don't do that. But what we want to do, and what we've always done, is tell people to think for themselves, to do your own research, to not take things at face level.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really blessed to be exposed to a lot of variety of teachers, from AT&T School of Business to shamanism and mysticism and everything in between, and Zen. And in the Toltec tradition, which is a powerful tradition, they say never accept anything at face value. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good counsel, particularly in today's world. Be an independent thinker. And so that's ultimately what we're about, is to help you remember who you are and the power that you have working through you. Call it God, call it spirit, choose whatever label is most comfortable for you. But there's this incredible power that works through you that is far greater than anything that can come from you if you follow the difference. Yeah. And so many of us get caught up in the intellectual mind, and we just buy what we're told, and we fall in line and we follow along. I mean, there's so many examples of that, and I'll let you lead the way, John, because I got my Instagram account shut down in 2020 during COVID, because not because I was debunking COVID. I was talking about, hey, take vitamin D and vitamin C and eat healthy and work out. And they shut my account down, 30,000 followers gone. And our team pursued it and said, what's the deal? Why? And they said, well, it doesn't comply with community standards. And that's as good as it gets. Nothing more beyond that. So again, we're in a precarious time. And so I'll let you lead the way, because if we put this on certain platforms, we may not want to talk about certain things. I don't know. And I be respectful of you and your show.
No, it's what I love about like-minded people, right? They find each other. So let me say this. It is the Man Up Already podcast, right? There's no politically correct, right? When you get to know me, I'm about as stripped down, as raw as it gets. There's no BS. And that is true. I mean, our family, I was sharing with somebody the other day. It was awesome. A good friend of mine, we had lunch and we were debating. Remember when you could do that, when you could have an intellectual conversation of opposing viewpoints and just share your thoughts and we call it argument, but it's really not. It's just countering, right? And having a conversation. And so my buddy Dan and I were talking, last week, and he said, well, give me some real, he goes, I know you read about it and I know you hear about it, but where did it show up in your life? And I said, COVID ripped my family apart because we didn't get vaccinated for everything that you're talking about. We believed way before COVID showed up, we believed that the power that created the body heals the body. And that if you pay attention, right, to what you do and what you put in and all those other things, we've been practicing that for years.
So have we.
Right? When you come along and say, hey, we've been working on this for a couple of months and you should take it, right? Like nobody in their right mind would do that out of the context of COVID, right? Everybody prior to that would probably go, wait, what? What is it? But we didn't back then because like you talked about, groupthink and group panic took over. But bottom line, we were like ostracized in our family community for not doing it. Right? I mean, I had heard things like, don't you love me?
Right.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And so that was a real world example of this lack of thinking and this lack of, questioning. And anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but all that to say, man, we could talk about whatever. I watched Tucker Carlson do the interview with Andrew Tate, I think is his name.
We saw that too.
Yeah. And I remember that day going to my wife saying, should I stop? I mean, I'm talking about the same things. Granted, I don't have the following, but I still am talking about the same things. And she was like, what are you going to do? Shrink? Like, do you think that's what God called you to do, to shrink from the message that we're putting out there? So this is a safe place to have the conversation because truth is truth. And at the end of the day, you can twist words and all that, but I've been saying this the whole time. I am a believer, but God will not be mocked, right? The creator of the universe, the spirit, whatever, will not be mocked. Truth is truth.
Yeah, we're on the right podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to God for the powers that connected us. So
That's for sure.
Here. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Were you going to Andrew Tate?
Um,
No, you're gonna skip over.
I mean, we don't have to. We don't have to go there. I certainly want to know your stories, right, Bear? I know both of you, and I was sharing with you before we went live that the Man Up Already mindset, this idea of what all this is based on, is that we are created for purpose, and that there are moments in life where, James, you were talking about, for some it's hitting the barrier of who they are and who they could be. And for some, it's rock bottom. And I honestly believe that most of the lessons, especially with men, right, we don't learn them until we're at, right, the house is burning, she's walking out the door, or we're at rock bottom before we go, I probably should maybe change something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't take that much.
I have to quote the Toltec once again, with given the example you've just given. In the Toltec tradition, which, by the way, Toltec translates as person of knowledge. And in the Toltec tradition, they say most people never do what's necessary to make significant change
Mm.
until they're backed into a corner with a dagger hanging over their head.
So true.
And that's one of the reasons I love Toltec, because they don't pull any punches. They're just, and it's a great metaphor.
Mhm.
It's a great visual. It's a great analogy for what has to happen. It doesn't have to be that way, but unfortunately, it most often is. What were you going to say about Tate?
Well, I was gonna say, just for you, John, I think you're doing the right thing. There's things to Tate that he didn't do in the beginning to do the right thing, so I think you're okay. There are some things that that's been out for, even he's only 35, I think. In his younger years that he's done that's kind of got him in a bit of the trouble that he's in now, and yeah, where you're
Yeah, I didn't know the guy until I saw him, being interviewed.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I did.
that's the trick there.
That's the trick. He comes off very, very compelling in the interview.
Mhm.
And yet, if you do some research, which we did, independent thinkers, right? We did. We dug in and we
Yeah.
looked at some other videos and other content, and it's nothing we would get behind.
Mm.
Now, that being said, I related at one level to what he was talking
Yeah.
about, because
Mhm.
if you know anything about my life, we say in this country, innocent until proven guilty. That's not true. That's an absolute lie. We are guilty and have to be proven innocent. And that's backwards. And that's what happened to me.
Mhm.
I was attacked and crucified by the media before I ever went to trial. And now that I've brought that up, you're probably going to want me to talk.
Yeah, we need
about
to know the story. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Just a
mean,
little bit.
you probably don't have a lot of people on your podcast who said I went to prison, but I'm one. And here's the short story. I rose to the top of my game. I created an Inc. 500 company, 10 million plus annually. My personal income was 4 million a year. I had a 7,500 square foot estate in Beverly Hills on Mulholland Drive. I was on Oprah twice, Larry King twice, the Today Show once a month for multiple months running. I was king of the hill, so to speak. And we had an event in 2009, my team and I, in Sedona, where we were deep diving into the drivers of behavior. And regardless of what you've been told or taught, the drivers of your behavior are not outside of you. It's not the economy. It's not the government. It's not who the president is. It's none of those. It's not your job or your business. The drivers are not outside of you. They're inside of you. They're those beliefs, assumptions, perceptions, values, all those things that drive behavior. Your psychology always drives your strategy. Period. How you think and feel determines how you act. And so we were diving deep, because here's the reality, John. And this is why things like Sound of Freedom are so near and dear to us, because we work with individuals who more often than not have experienced a tremendous amount of trauma, both men and women. And a lot of it is sexual trauma. It's more common than uncommon. And boy, that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But it's a reality. And so in this event, 5-day event in Arizona, we were diving deep into these internal drivers, and we were going back and visiting these unresolved emotional issues, which psychology tells us normally happen from 14 years and younger. From birth to 14 are the most important years and how we're programmed and how we're conditioned. And I don't want to get off on multiple tangents, but this whole thing going on with grooming and children right now during those formative years is just heinous. It's heinous, because those kinds of things scar people for life. And we work with those people. And so that's what we were doing in Sedona. And it was an emotional week. And we worked long, we worked hard. And at the end of that 5-day experience, we had an experiential learning opportunity called a sweat lodge. And if anyone watched the mainstream media, they remember this because the media sensationalized it. And at the end of the day, 3 people lost their lives in that lodge, which broke my heart. I had gotten to know them intimately just by nature of the program. And so now, and this is all coming back to how I can relate at some level to Andrew Tate. I don't know if he's guilty or innocent, but what I know in this country is that you're innocent until proven guilty. Period. That's what we say. And so, but that's not what we do. And so for me, it broke my heart. The media immediately crucified me. I went from media sensation to media Satan, just
Yeah.
like that. I was automatically guilty. Anderson Cooper, watch out for this guy. He's still on the loose, and they're flashing my picture back and forth and back and forth.
Wow.
Okay, what am I going to do? Walk down into Beverly Hills and whip a sweat lodge out of my back pocket? I mean, seriously, and I don't mean to be facetious, but anyone with a brain knew this was an accident. Well, the system is manipulated. It's supposed to be a search for truth. It's not. It's a power-driven, greedy-driven system for power and money and position. At the end of the day, there were 32 counts of prosecutorial misconduct in my trial. 1 count of prosecutorial misconduct is usually a mistrial. There was no mistrial. They prosecuted me for manslaughter. Okay, I was in the lodge. Several people got sick. 3 people died. They were foaming at the mouth. Their pupils were dilated. That's not heat related. The ER records, the doctors wrote on the ER records, look for toxins. This is not heat. The state's whole case was I made it too hot. No one was in there. No one had a thermometer. But these presenting problems were not heat related. And so it didn't matter. It didn't matter because they were on a mission to take down this media sensation and this guy who had created this big harbinger of independent thinking and think for yourself and don't buy into the media. That doesn't go well in the media. And don't buy into what you're told. Think for yourself and be your own person. And so the state was fined. They had to pay a Brady violation for suppressing evidence in my favor. No mistrial. At the end of the day, I can relate to what's going on, and we just found out today, and I found out. Sorry to maybe not evergreen this podcast, but I found out today that Trump's being indicted again.
Yeah, I saw that.
Again.
Yep.
I mean, at what point do we go, wait a second, there's something going on here that's kind of third world country. There's something going on here that's got to be more than surface value. Let's look deeper. And so anyway, that's my story. 10 years ago, John, I was standing in the desert in 2013. I just not evergreened it again. In 2013, I was standing in the desert and I was in horrible physical condition. I came out of prison.
2 years of prison.
2 years of prison.
Yeah.
I got prison anyway. I was acquitted of manslaughter. Thank God they wanted 30 years. I wouldn't be here with you today. But there was a lesser inclusive. If you know anything about the legal system, that was by design too, because they bumped it up to manslaughter, which gave them 2 shots at me. And the lesser inclusive was negligence. Okay. I can take responsibility. Negligence says, and I do take responsibility. Things could have been done better. I agree. I wish they had been. Things were missed or overlooked. I agree. I wish they had not have been. And so I got 2 years and I got out in 2013, and 10 years ago, I was standing in the middle of the desert of Arizona, and you talk about rock bottom. I was in horrible physical condition. I'd lost 40 pounds I didn't need to lose. I had periodontal disease, horrible. I was alone. I didn't have my lovely wife at that time yet. And I was homeless 10
Mhm.
years ago. I was homeless. Obviously, we're coming to you from our media studio here, so I'm not alone anymore. I'm not homeless. And I was $20 million in debt. 20 million.
Nice.
That'll make anyone
Yeah,
go.
that'll rattle you.
And so what do you do? What do you do? You know, we talked about hitting the ceiling, we talked about hitting rock bottom. Well, you dig deep. You dig really, really deep, and you start to ask yourself some very probing questions and answering them. You know, questions I ask myself is, okay, James, who are you now?
Mhm.
You don't have the millions, you don't have the mansion, you've lost your reputation. Who are you above and beyond all those things? Most people can never answer that question because when you ask most people, John, what who they are, they'll tell you what they do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a father. No, that's a role that you play. That's not who you are. You're more than that. Well, I'm a podcaster. No, that's something you do. You're more than that. So, who are you beyond all the things that you have and do? And I had to dig deep. And then, what do I know was another question. Not know about. And this is unfortunate too in today's world. And I'm on a roll, so jump in anytime because
He's gonna run
You,
up.
you're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. Yeah.
I'm the
I want to hear the story of how
talking
Bear saved you, though. That's the
yeah.
I was gonna say you manned up is what you did.
Yeah, I did. I had to man up. You know, I could have curled up in a fetal position and said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And guess what? There would have been a lot of people out there who would have agreed with me. You know, I can't tell you how many people on social media, well, it was a good run,
Yeah.
but you're done.
And that's when, as the great Art Williams used to say, that's when they should pat your face with a shovel, right? Because that is not. I think that I love what you said, when you really know who you are, there is that compelling force that says, again, it's the Man Up Already podcast. Get your ass up. There's more to do, right? Like that to me is what the Man Up Already mindset and moment is that no matter what, like, get up. There's still, you're breathing. You can use it. I was just sharing with somebody, that your pain can have purpose.
That's right.
Right? Your pain can have purpose. So
Your scars are a symbol of your strength.
that's right.
Period.
And in there also is, and I've seen it in my life, certainly not to the extent of what you all have walked through, but there's your pain earns respect. And I remember when a friend of mine was going through a divorce, and I said to him, I just want to let you know I'm here. I'm not going to sit here and try to, disrespect what you're going through, because what you're walking through garners respect, right? Like your pain builds that self-concept, self-respect. My wife and I, 26 years of marriage, we've faced some things, and I respect that woman more today than ever before because of the walk that we've been through. Your pain brings respect. It has purpose.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And that's why, God brought Bersabeh and I have been together for 10 years. We haven't been a married couple for 10 years. We've been married we're going on our fourth, right?
Fourth year. Yeah.
Fourth year in December. But we've been together for 10 years. And I firmly believe that's why God brought Bersabeh to me, because she's got a heck of a story too. And because of her story and her experience, she was able to relate to me and to believe in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And I think that's vitally important. If you're fortunate enough to have someone who believes in you and will walk your term with you, then you're truly blessed. Not everyone has that. But when you do, it's a powerhouse. It really is.
True.
I was just mentoring right before we got on with a guy that I work with, a good friend of mine, and I'm reading the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, I think is his name. Have you heard of this book at all?
No.
Yeah, the Almanac of Naval, Naval, Ravikant, I think is last. Anyway, it's really great wisdom. But he says in there that the choice, there's some things that are very vital to a happy life, a successful life, and the choices that you make, and certainly choice of spouse is one of them. And I think the one thing that I've learned is when you find a person that accepts you for who you truly are, the good, the bad, all of that, one of the things that I tackled this year in my health was sleep apnea. But if they're willing to listen to you snore all night and keep them up, and then, I go to bed with a Vader mask on my face, right? If they love you through that, I remember saying to my wife, I said, "Are you going to love me with this hose coming off my face?" And she said, "I'd love you if it was coming out of your ass." I said, "I married the right person."
Oh,
Right. But like when you have that person that will walk with you, and no matter what, that the respect that comes with it, but the life that brings for both. Bersabeh, I want to hear your story for sure. I already know where we're kind of going to go in the arc of this podcast, because you two are just showing up and representing it, and we're touching on it. But that, in a world that's trying to quote unquote redefine masculinity and femininity, the fundamental truth is that masculine and feminine are unique. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole just yet, but they are unique, and they are created to be in partnership together. It's always such an honor to have such incredible guests here on the podcast. And the podcast just wouldn't be what it is without our great sponsor, Master Beef Jerky. Head on over to masterbeefjerky.com. Check out their product. It is really incredible beef jerky if you're a fan like we are. It's made here in the USA. It's handcrafted. There's no MSG. It's low in fat. It's gluten-free. It's just freaking good. Their motto is bold flavor, tender bite, and they've got flavors like their original. They've got smoked barbecue, Korean barbecue, Western teriyaki, sweet and spicy, mango and pineapple, carne asada, garlic pepper, a Carolina Reaper flavor, and black pepper. It is good stuff. Head on over to masterbeefjerky.com, and on your order, if you put in coupon code MUAP, you will get 20% off. Master Beef Jerky, bold flavor, tender bite, and a great sponsor of the podcast.